Welcome back to the Wealthy by Design show. I'm Jane Summersett, your host. And for the past couple of months on this podcast, we've been talking with people about their lives, what worked and what didn't, the struggles they faced, what they wished they would have done differently, and what really matters to them when they look in the long run. Some of those conversations have been published here on the show. There have been hundreds more that happen every day through my work and through travels and just normal conversations with people about life. And there are a few themes that come up again and again. And people talk about the importance of owning their time. That's a pretty big one. They talk about flexibility to work when they want, flexibility to travel, flexibility to spend time with family. They talk about health and movement, and then wanting to be somewhere they love with the people they love, because time moves so quickly and loved ones are so important. And when you really listen to those conversations, you find that all of those things depend on having a strong foundation. Now, I can make different comparisons, but because I like teeth, here you go. So in a healthy mouth, you need a strong base, you need good bone support, and really much more. But you can brush your teeth perfectly every day, but if your nutrition is poor, if stress levels are high, if bone levels are poor, eventually problems start showing up. And there's no amount of brushing and topical applications that can fix a weak foundation. There's my comparison. If your financial foundation isn't there, if there's no plan, no stability, no long-term thinking, then there's no amount of extra hours you can work or coffees that you can skip that will magically make the stress disappear. You don't want to come home, have a flooded basement, and all of a sudden not be able to come up with the money for an unexpected necessary expense. At some point, it comes down to not just what you make, but what you save. And that's one of the many reasons the idea of financial independence has become such an interesting topic. For me, I really started to focus on this idea after throwing myself into a lot of educational debt. And then when I bought a business 6 months out of school, there's nothing that forces the issue like a good pile of debt. And I know that if I didn't come up with a plan, that this would be a mountain that would not be scalable in the future. So kind of thought of it like a game. And now if I'm ahead of schedule, which I usually am, I get to celebrate, because we all need more celebration, of course, in life. And educational debt is very common. So I know there are other people out there who are making plans just like me. But now, according to Experian data, June 2025, the total American consumer debt, which includes student loans, but also like credit card debt, mortgages, personal loans, auto loans, etc., is up to $0.3 trillion. And that's with a T, not a B. That means the average consumer debt for Americans is over like $100,000. And well, folks, that is a lot of money. And having a plan to pay that back is imperative. And there are a lot of folks with a lot more debt than the average. And I was and am one of them. So let's talk about the exciting part that I'm excited about, at least financial independence. So financial independence is essentially the point where you have enough wealth, investments, or passive income to cover your living expenses without needing to work. Work becomes optional. You make life decisions based on what you want to do, not what you have to do. And if we're being honest, that's what a lot of people are dreaming about when they think about retirement. There's this one thing, though. If we don't talk about it early, and if we don't start thinking about early, it becomes really hard to actually plan for it. And these conversations are important, but they can also be fun, because the truth is none of us knows exactly what the future will be like. And all we can really do is make our best plan with the information we have for today. It's a little bit like talking about end-of-life planning. What happens when our bodies slow down and we can't live independently anymore? And if we're lucky enough to live that long, it's probably something we should be discussing now and not waiting until it becomes urgent. But how often do people actually talk about that? Not very often. That probably will be a topic for another episode. So getting back to financial independence, one movement that has really made this conversation more approachable is something called the FIRE movement, which stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And honestly, it's kind of fun because, again, it almost gamifies the process. And who doesn't like a good game? So the basic idea behind FIRE is aggressive saving and investing. And many people in the movement aim to save somewhere around 50 to 70% of their income. And that's a lot. The goal is to build an investment portfolio large enough that the returns can cover your living expenses. Common guideline people use is something called the 4% rule. The idea is that if you withdraw about 4% of your investment portfolio each year, your money should last at least roughly 30 years or more. Because of that, many people aim for a target number, they call it. That's about 25 times their annual expenses. For example, if you spend $40,000 a year, you might be around $1 million invested. That's your target number. Do you know what your number is? And do you know how much you spend per year? The first number you should look at is how much you spend per year. Calculate out that number. You can multiply it by 25 and voila, you have found a good base for your target number. Of course, this will vary on the lifestyle changes, activities that will vary over a lifetime, but you can always reassess your target number each year. So have fun with it. The beauty is that you are calculating it and starting with a plan. Congratulations, you are ahead of 60% of Americans who don't know what they spend per year, according to Yahoo Finance. And I don't know how they find out that data, but back to financial independence, retire early. There are also different variations of FIRE. There's lean FIRE, where people live frugally and aim for a smaller target number to live off of. There's fat FIRE, where people want a higher standard of living and therefore a large investment portfolio. There's barista FIRE, where someone works part-time while the investments cover the rest of their expenses. And then there's Coast FIRE, which is one of my favorites. Coast FIRE basically means you save and invest aggressively early on until you reach a point where if you stopped contributing altogether, compound interest alone would grow your investments to your retirement number. Once you hit that point, you could relax a little bit. You can still work, you can still earn money, but you're not feeling the same pressure because the long-term plan is already in motion. And what I love about the FIRE movement is there's not just one way to do it, because there's rarely a single path that works for everyone, for most things in life, right? Personally, I love the idea of living intentionally right now, not just waiting until some distant retirement date to start enjoying life. For me, the dream isn't just retirement, it's time with family, time for fishing, lots and lots of fishing trips, vacation with fishing, more fishing, and then time for creativity and dance, art, music, all the above. You get the idea. But getting there takes planning. You'll have to run the numbers, map out a path, think about what your life actually costs and what you want your life to look like. And honestly, you can think of that process in a few different ways, like a training or personal education, or you can just think of it as a game, because in a lot of ways, life can be gamified. If you're already thinking about the future, already planning and saving, then you're already playing the game, and you're already moving closer to something a lot of people are searching for, and that's owning your own time. So here's to building wealth by design and continuing the conversation about financial independence. Cheers to you.